Thank you for coming in.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Sunday Sessions with Existential Love and Math. My name is Jenny Schlenska. I'm the Associate Curator here, and have the pleasure to introduce Edward Frenkel and Laurent Daubert, who are going to be talking about love and math. Edward just wrote a book about his love for math, and Laurent is making up, I think, do you make those up, the equations, or do they exist? But he makes them to explain love and interpersonal relationships, so we thought it would be a good idea to put them both in a room and talk about their ideas. Quickly, the run-through for today is both will give very short presentations on their ideas, and then we have the pleasure to have Peter Coffin, a Brooklyn-based artist, here to talk to both of them. And Peter just told me that he considers himself also not very knowledgeable in math. So we thought maybe that's a good way to learn more. So, Edward Frenkel is the author of Love and Math, The Heart of Hidden Reality, which was just published this year. He is a professor of mathematics at the University of California, Berkeley, and his research focuses on aspects of symmetry in mathematics and physics, with recent research on Langland's program and dualities in quantum field theory. Frenkel is the author of 2 books. He has published over 80 papers and is known for his YouTube lectures, as well as co-produced, co-directed, and starred in his film Rights of Love and Math from 2010. So here's Edward Frenkel. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny, for such a wonderful introduction. Can you guys hear me? Yes. And also big thanks to Laurent Daubert, with whom I will share the stage, and Peter Coffin, a great artist who has agreed to moderate our discussion, which will be just in a few minutes. And of course, Jenny and Alex from PS1 for organizing this event, and Nicholas Anderson for his tremendous help in many ways. And all of you for coming here and braving the cold weather in New York. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here because it's something kind of new. I've never done this before, and I hope it will be kind of a new beginning. By the way, do you know what PS1 stands for? Actually, I didn't know. Peter Coffin told me. It stands for Public School Number 1. So I feel right at home as your teacher today because, you know, I'm a professor of mathematics at the University of California in Berkeley. So welcome, class. And pay attention because there will be a pop quiz at the end. No, I'm joking. It's not about testing. It's about thinking and, you know, letting our imagination run wild. That's what I would like you to do today. Imagine a world in which you had to take an art class in which they only taught you how to paint a fence or a wall, but never showed you the paintings of the great masters. That would be kind of boring, right? And years later, you'll talk to your friends and say, oh my gosh, I hate art. I was so bad at it at school. But that's because no one told you what art really was about. Unfortunately, that's the way mathematics is taught. And so in the eyes of most of us, it becomes the equivalent of watching paint dry. So imagine that you were in that bizarre world. Imagine that you were an artist who actually knew the paintings of Van Gogh and Leonardo da Vinci and Picasso, who had access to museums where those we could see those paintings and learn so much about the world and about ourselves. But no one else knew about it, and everybody else only thought that art was about painting the fence and the wall over and over and over again. What would you do then? Well, that's why I'm here. To tell you that mathematics is an amazing world, an amazing parallel universe, which offers us so much more than we are led to believe. So how can we all discover this universe? We can discover it through art. And this is the first message that I would like you to appreciate here today. But also, mathematics, I will argue today that mathematics can allow artists to discover new dimensions in art, something that they hadn't seen before. And maybe when artists see that, they can also convey these ideas, these concepts to us. Case in point, Marcel Duchamp, a famous painting, Nude Descending the Staircase, number 2, 1912. What he's trying to tell us is that an object doesn't have to be static in the art, doesn't have to be static in a painting. We can actually see the movement of the object. So what he's doing really is putting the fourth dimension, time, into the art. He's breathing new life into art by using a mathematical idea of the fourth dimension. Interestingly, exactly around exactly the same time, we are talking about the beginning of the 20th century, 1912. Albert Einstein is developing his theory in which he shows that time and space cannot be separated. Mathematicians such as Henri Poincaré talk about non-Euclidean geometry, about four-dimensional and higher dimensional spaces. I always wondered, was that just by accident? Was it sort of a zeitgeist where an artist came up with the same idea as a mathematician independently? Turns out that's not the case. This was no accident. Marcel Duchamp was very attuned to the development of mathematics of his era. He was reading mathematical textbooks. He was leaving notes, like this one. You don't have to memorize it for the test. In fact, I talk about this a lot in my book, Love and Math, which you have in the back of this room. So if you're more interested in this stuff, you can find more information about this in my book. But the fact is that Duchamp was learning from mathematicians. He was distilling this information, this knowledge, this truth, and then he was conveying this information back to us in the language of art, in a language which a lot more people can understand and relate to on the emotional, visceral, intuitive level than to mathematics. So what can we learn from this? Mathematics informs art and allows artists to see new dimensions, learn new profound truths about the world. And artists can use that knowledge to tell us something about the world, and then mathematicians themselves can learn from them because they may be able to see something which they couldn't see through equations and formulas and images that came out purely squarely from mathematics, which is more rigorous, cerebral, as opposed to intuitive and visceral. And that's the synthesis, I think, which we are not exploiting enough. And I want to talk about this in more detail. Here are a couple of quotes for you about disruption in the arts. That Marcel Duchamp's work was a major disruption because he was finding those multi-dimensional spaces as a challenge to us and a challenge to the canons of art. And also, Gerald Holton, a great science historian, talks about how both Duchamp and Poincaré, we should all pause and appreciate this. And we have a nice sound to go with it. They loved this four-dimensional space in their own ways. It's all about love. So, I'm a mathematician. So what is my takeaway from this? My takeaway from this is that we have to communicate more mathematics to the artists. We have to provide artists with the vocabulary of the 21st century. The 21st century mathematics. And this way, it is this way that we will reach a new level of abstraction. Because let's face it, what is it that separates us from cavemen and cave women? I mean, we had the same, they were doing pretty much the same things we do, but it's a level of abstraction. We approach the world armed with sort of these glasses which allow us to see things differently because we can abstract things, we can place them in categories. And that's also the history of art because, you know, I'm no art critic, but I'm just a country boy from a small town in Russia. But it seems to me, you know, if you think about art, the history of art, it's the same thing. First, you look at an object and you try to depict it in a painting. But then art evolves. We don't want to stay in the same level. And that's how we come to the abstract art, works like Duchamp's that I showed you earlier, where new ideas, new concepts find expression through artistic means. But, okay, so we are at this level, but it doesn't mean that there is more. There is more. There is a next level, and the next, and the next. How do we reach those new levels of abstractions? What I'm arguing today is that we can do that in many different ways. I'm far from saying that's the only way, but one of the ways is through mathematics. And by the way, forget about golden ratio. Please. Leonardo da Vinci already knew this stuff 500 years ago, okay? And by the way, that's because he was not only an artist, but he was also a mathematician. It was that great era, which we call Renaissance, when actually those things went hand in hand. They went together. There was no contradiction, like the way we think about the two cultures. Oh, art and math. I'm an artist. Oh my gosh, I can't understand mathematics. Oh, I'm a mathematician. Oh, I can understand art. Well, but golden ratio had its time, and now let's move on to the next ideas, because a lot of mathematics has been discovered in the last 500 years. And I will talk about some of this today. So my first attempt, I just want to mention this because not because I want to do some publicity for my film, but which, by the way, I'll have DVDs. You know, it's like this is modern world, but I have to mention. But it was my first attempt to try to talk about mathematics in an artistic way, and it was a film which I co-directed with a great French film director, Frenkel, which was a homage to a Japanese film by the great Japanese writer Yuki Mishima. So, Rights of Love and Math. And the premise of the film was that the mathematician finds a formula of love. What happens next? Well, let me just show you a couple of images. So we set it on a Japanese, on a stage of a Japanese Noh theater, following Mishima's film, which, you know, our film was a homage to Mishima. And a mathematician discovers formula of love, then realizes that it poses great danger because a formula of love so powerful could also be used for evil as well as for good. So he has to hide it. And how to hide it? He decides to tattoo it on the body of the woman he loves. And so the formula becomes part of the body. The formula, product of the mind, becomes part of the body. And it expresses love, just like a poem, or a piece of music, or a painting. That was the idea of the film. And that's the final image, that's the tattoo of the formula. Which, by the way, is my formula. Well, in the film, it plays the role of the formula of love. And, you know, people ask me, does the formula of love really exist? Does the formula of love really exist? And my answer is that every formula we discover is a formula of love. And I'll explain, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because, first of all, the idea, of course, was that the formula gets under your skin. But also, the point is that mathematical truths belong to all of us equally. We may not be aware of the formula. By the way, like I said, this is a formula from a paper which I wrote with two co-authors about quantum physics. And the formula actually makes sense, and it tells us something about the world. And so do all other mathematical formulas and equations and mathematical concepts. They tell us something about the world and about us. and they belong to all of us equally. They mean the same thing to all of us. It doesn't matter what culture, what language we speak, where we come from, what is our background. Now and 1,000 years ago and 1,000 years from now, same thing. So, in my book, Love and Math, I argue that mathematics is this great connector, is a great uniter, is something that we all have in common, and no one can take it away from us. So, therefore, it can be the basis for love, for loving each other, for loving the world, because it is something that we all have in common. That's what this film was referring to, and the mathematical formula may not explain love. I actually don't believe that mathematics can explain love, but a mathematical formula could carry the charge of love in the sense in which I just explained. But to me, an important point here is to say, and I want to really emphasize it, that in making this film, we wanted the viewer to be first intrigued by the aesthetic beauty of the formula. But that was not the end. That was only the beginning. For me, it's a two-way process. It should be a two-way process. First, we appreciate the aesthetic beauty, the visual beauty of the formula. But that's our portal to understanding the intellectual beauty of the formula, which should come next. So this formula, that's why, for me, it's very important that the formula... Yeah? Hello? And what do I do with this one now? Okay, 2, we'll double it. Okay. Double down, all right. Well, I guess, you know, I hope you like what I'm saying, because I'm going to now to speak twice as loudly. So, intellectual beauty should come next. And that's important to me. I think that that's what we should do. We should convey the intellectual beauty as well as the aesthetic beauty. We should not stop at the aesthetic beauty. And of course, this evokes Plato's Symposium, you know, where they discuss eros and love, and how there is earthly love, which is a lower form of love, but then there is a higher form of love, the divine love. And mathematical love is an example of that. So a two-way process. But we're really talking about the truth, the important truth. And this brings me to this wonderful work by Bruce Nauman. He put this in the window of his gallery, of his studio. This neon sign, like a cheap hotel, a cheap motel, you know. We're offering you whatever, HBO. Well, what is he offering us? He says a true artist helps the world by revealing mystic truths. 1967. Well, here's my rejoinder to this. Well, if the true artist helps the world by revealing mystic truths, the true mathematician helps the true artist by taking him or her to the outer reaches of knowledge. That's what I'm talking about. We have to help artists understand the vocabulary of the 21st century, and that vocabulary is the vocabulary of mathematics. And by the way, the great Charles Darwin, I love this quote. He talks about mathematics as giving us an extra sense. And you know, art, of course, is all about using our senses to convey ideas and emotions, possibly in an abstract way. Well, if mathematics gives us an extra sense, then surely it could also enhance our understanding of art and our appreciation of art. And conversely, art can help us understand mathematics, deep mathematical ideas. And I just want to give you an example. I don't want to write any formulas, but I want to show you some beautiful geometric shapes, Riemann surfaces. But anyway, the first one I was going to show you, maybe I'll just, a sphere. We have all seen the sphere. That was the first picture which Laurent's laptop ate of my pictures. Thank you, Laurent. The sphere. The second one was a torus, was the surface of a donut. And this is the third one, slightly truncated. Let me go back to this other mode. Which is like a Danish pastry or something, surface of Danish pastry, and you can continue. The pretzel will have 3 holes and so on. In mathematics, we call them Riemann surfaces. And by the way, I already mentioned we're so fortunate to have Peter Coffin as a moderator of our discussion later this afternoon. And I wanted to put up one of his works, which to me speaks about the shapes and about how we can appreciate those shapes, maybe through something as mundane as a staircase. So here is a staircase. Where is the staircase leading us? Right? So I'm going to ask Peter about this when we talk. But I think it also opens some new dimensions. And this is a great example for me of how art can also open up new dimensions in our perception. But I want to make a distinction between two things. So bear with me for just a second. In mathematics, we have flat spaces, like this chessboard. You know, it's flat in the sense that it's a union of squares, which are all flat, right? So they have 90 degrees at each corner. But then there are also curved spaces, non-Euclidean ones, like a sphere. There is a difference between a sphere and the plane, right? Because in a sphere we also have meridians and parallels, so you can form the kind of rectangles, but they're not real rectangles. They have curved boundaries. So that's what I'm talking about when I say curved space. A curved space, a curved shape, is something which is not flat, like a chessboard. And again, the laptop ate my sphere, but that's fine. The sphere, huh? Oh, the dome. Oh, thank you. Wow, that's so beautiful. See, so that's what I mean when I talk about revelations. You see, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is a revelation. You know, I can tell, I can try to show it, but here it is, and suddenly we all see that. Wow. So, okay. But now here's a very important thing, which I want you to pay attention to, which is that we always perceive spherical objects like this dome as being embedded in a landscape, in a three-dimensional world. Like we live in a three-dimensional world, right? Because I can move this way, I can move this way, and I can jump. So three directions, three independent directions. It's a three-dimensional space. The dome is two-dimensional because if you have a bug on that dome, the bug can only go in two directions. And it's like the, you know, latitude and longitude are the two coordinates on Earth. The surface of Earth is also spherical, right? So this is two-dimensional. The space is three-dimensional. We always perceive two-dimensional shapes as being embedded in a three-dimensional space. But mathematicians asked already in the 19th century whether one could talk about curved spaces like a sphere, like the surface of this dome, as existing by themselves without being embedded anywhere else. And it sounded like a crazy idea. Why would you ever care about this? Because everybody knows that our space is flat, three-dimensional space is flat, so it's perfectly fine to just perceive curved spaces as being embedded into it. Well, guess what? Einstein told us that actually our space is not flat. We are, and this is not a joke, we are inhabiting a three-dimensional space which is curved, just like the sphere is curved, in contrast with the surface of the stage or the chessboard. So we live in a three-dimensional curved space. How do we even imagine a three-dimensional curved space? Well, how can we imagine a two-dimensional sphere? How can we talk about it? Well, it's a set of all points equidistant from a given point. So that's clear, right? So if you take a point in the middle of this floor, in the center of this floor, all the points, more or less, if it's a perfect sphere, then all the points on this dome would be equidistant from that point. That's how we describe a sphere. And likewise, we could think about a three-dimensional sphere as being the set of all points equidistant from a given point in a four-dimensional space. But unfortunately, then we would have to go out in a four-dimensional space, and we can't. We can't see four-dimensional space. So how can we even talk about the three-dimensional sphere? Well, fortunately, there is a way, and it's called the Hopf vibration. Hopf vibration was discovered, I should say, because I do believe that these mathematical ideas and concepts and images, they all populate this abstract ideal world, Platonic world, where they are discovered by mathematicians. This was discovered by Heinz Hopf, German-Swiss mathematician, in 1931. You can find this image This was created by a colleague of mine from University of Toronto, Dror Barnatan. You can find it on his webpage. Just Google Planet Hopf, H-O-P-F. And Eric Weinstein, my good friend, pointed me to this website. He actually has a nice video where you can see this moving. And I'm kind of running out of time, so I don't want to talk much more about this. I want this to leave this as a question. There's only one thing you remember from this talk. I want you to remember this. This is an image of a three-dimensional sphere. So, okay, let's skip that. So now finally I come to the main point. This is my challenge to the artists. Create a work of art that will allow all of us, mathematicians or not, to experience the Hopf vibration, to experience the three-dimensional sphere, which is actually closer in many ways to the world we live in than the Cartesian Euclidean space that we are so used to. Allow us to transcend our limited imagination. Give us the access to the true wonders of our world. Peter Coffin, who will join us on the stage, said something to me, and I'm paraphrasing. The art should help us see the invisible. And so this is my mathematical formula. There's one formula, okay, sorry, which is, let's multiply art and mathematics. And that's how we will reach new art. And that's how we will reach new levels of abstraction. I firmly believe in this. I think there's this tremendous field which is wide open. And we can do that. And my good friend Mary Carr, a great poet and writer, is here, so I hope you enjoy this quote from Lee Cummings, my favorite poet. I think he's talking about this. A whole of a good universe out there. We can find it together, scientists and artists and everybody else. And actually, it's already happening. I want to show you one painting by great artist Terry Winters. So what do we have here? Van Gogh's Starry Night is the background. An image which is so deeply entrenched in our psyche, because it gives the language to impressionists and to artists who followed them. But on top of it, Terry superimposes Riemann surfaces. I'm so glad that the computer didn't eat those. You see that here we have the torus at the top. We got the sphere, we got all kinds of fancy shapes. So what is he trying to tell us? By the way, you can see this painting at an exhibition which is currently on, it's called About UFOs at the David Nolan Gallery. And also other works by, also Peter Coffin's works are there, and other works by Terry Winters are on display at NS Capalbos National Exemplar Gallery in Soho. This is all ongoing. You have 2 more weeks to visit those. But what is he telling us? I think what he's telling us is that there is a new alphabet for an artist. And that alphabet is not A, B, C, D. It's not alpha, beta, gamma, delta. And okay, I'm a mathematician, but I have to admit, it's not even 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the Riemann surfaces. It's this geometric ideas and concepts, the product of modern mathematics, that can revolutionize the way we think about art, the way we convey art to viewers. So maybe, in part, I like this painting so much because the same image, Van Gogh's Starry Night, is on the cover of my book, Love and Math. And so, and Riemann surfaces are inside. So when I saw that, I was very surprised. It was very serendipitous because obviously Terry Winters did his collage without knowing about my book. I did, this cover art was created by the artist who didn't know about his work either. But so that gives me some hope, actually, that certain things are converging. I think that the time is auspicious. The time is now. The time to unite in new and profound ways art and mathematics. Thank you very much.